Hello, everyone. My name is Jenny Burak, and I'm an astrologer, and I channel Archangel Metatron. Truly, when you're channeling, the energy comes in, or just comes through you, is what Metatron is saying. Comes through you, speaks through you, and we have more of an ongoing conversation. So I will be saying what he's giving me to say. Sometimes people say, what does Metatron have to say about this and this in the video? He's not saying anything. If he does say something differently, I always point it out. But he throws in, we go over all of this together before I make the video, and then he'll throw in nuggets here and there sometimes as well. So I want to thank everyone who has, I have a lot of new subscribers this month. So I wanted to say welcome to all of you, and thank you to everyone who leaves me such nice comments and sends me emails. I'm very grateful for all of the support that you show me. And as the Virgo new moon comes up, I'm going to share some artwork that was gifted to me not so long ago by some of you. And I'm always just so appreciative, and I feel very blessed. And I feel like we're a community here. So I appreciate all of you sharing when things speak to you in the videos as well. And for everyone who shares the videos too. So if I was going to say, if you're subscribed and you aren't getting notifications, you need to hit the bell for notifications. And I've been uploading or just posting under the community tab recently. When my classes are, I'm teaching a class called a course is what he's saying, called The Rising, and it is a Metatron Ascension modality. So in the course over, there's one class, and then we're going to wait a few months between classes, and the next one will be over a weekend. It won't be a series of 6-week classes. We're going to get it all done in one weekend. And that will probably be end of September, beginning of October. But we'll see. I'll let you know when the first class is ready and uploaded onto Vimeo if you'd like to purchase it. I had a lot of people ask me questions, so that's why I'm addressing it. And then you can, once you've taken the first class, you'll be able to take the second. There are so many healings in that class. We worked a lot on service to others and sacrificing ourselves. That's something that's actually part of the collective consciousness. We did a lot of healings related to, I had like a front and back of a piece of paper, and there were a lot of healings that were done. So, and amazing upgrades. I've had students, more than one student, who had huge shifts come after the class. A lot of life changes went on for people, and it was important for me to teach the class then. And as the Mercury now it was retrograde at the time, now as it's leaving shadow, I'm getting that edited and uploaded so that it can be available for everyone. So it's exciting. And the next class will relate to the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius. So that will get into sound frequencies, vibrations, healings, and then also we'll be talking about the higher self and coming into our higher consciousness. A lot of interesting things to talk about with Gemini and Sagittarius axis. So today we are going to focus, I'm making this on August 10th, and we are focusing on the August 15th full moon that all of us have on that date in the sign of Aquarius. And that is happening at 7:29 a.m. in Chicago, 1:29 p.m. in London, and 10:29 p.m. in Sydney. I looked up Australia this time. I was pretty proud of myself that I remembered that. And it's happening at 22 degrees and change of Aquarius. So whatever you have, I'd say I give a lot of wide berth for full moons and new moons just because they're very significant and they'll mean something different for all of us. Always what's common is that full moons bring illuminations, and they bring things that coming to fruition. So this one in particular answers the new moon that was where a seed was planted on July 23rd of 2017. And this takes place at 29 minutes past the hour. That took place at 47 minutes past the hour. Both are 11s, the master number. The 2 and the 9 for us today relate to coming into balance. And then 9 relates to gifts coming to fruition, closing up a cycle, wrapping things up. I feel like once this energy now is past, we'll finish the Lionsgate energies as this as this full moon is done. So probably about the 18th when Mars moves into Virgo, and we're all going to feel a shift with that as well. So I'm curious to hear what your experiences were for the Lionsgate. I usually do have something pretty significant happen, and kind of like I'm not expecting it. So I ended up going to sleep, with this Uranus coming to a station. I wasn't tired. I just was like, I don't know what's wrong with me, because I've felt so exhausted lately. And so I finally went to bed at like 2, which I never do that. I mean, rarely, if I can help it. And as I was getting into bed, I noticed that I was completely I was like light body, and laid down. I was like, oh, something's happening. So I had a lot of healing and attunements and downloads, and it went on for about an hour. And then my mind was just like, doo-doo, and I was awake till like 5:30 in the morning. But that's because of what is happening in my chart with Uranus coming to a station. I'm sure I hope everyone didn't have that story. But yeah, and I've heard from other people who have told me that significant things happened to them on that date this year. So I want to talk about the fixed stars that we have with this full moon. And the first one is called Saddle Suud. It's SADALSUUD. Okay. It's known as the luckiest of the lucky, and it is the star of mighty destiny. It's yellow in color, and it's found on the left shoulder of the water bearer. Okay, so the constellation of Aquarius is the woman, a young woman, a youthful female figure pouring what looks to be, I can't think of the word, a vessel of water onto the ground. Okay, so Aquarius is known as the sign of the water bearer. And so with the left, that's a nod to our feminine aspect, and yellow relates to joy. Oh, that's why. Okay, I wondered why I would have had so many yellow flowers for this video. And so it speaks to great honor and riches that come after troubled times. Okay, so again, an Aquarius is about the big picture and seeing things from the stratosphere, is what Metatron is saying, and seeing things that take place over a long period of time. And really that's key to us being able to keep our vibrations high right now, because if we're getting down into it, what's actually happening day to day, moment to moment, it's not so easy to cope. So this is just a reminder to all of us to see things from the higher perspective. And the other fixed star, these are within, like, I don't even remember how many minutes of one another, but it's called Deneb Elgidi. And so the first word is DENEB, second word ALGEDI. I know a lot of you like to look into these. And that rules the blood vessels and the nerve endings, like the connections with the nerves. It's found in the constellation of Capricornus, and that rules over human affairs and major changes regarding climate change and politics. So try to remember what was happening for you at the end of July in 2017. always with the full moon or the new moon, we look to the ruler of that sign for information about how this energy is going to play out. And so we look to Uranus, who is in Taurus. And I want to remind everyone that Uranus in Taurus is called, every planet has a sign where it is exalted. All of them have a sign where they are in their detriment. That for Uranus is about freedom, freedom of expression, being able to break free. It breaks the chains of karma. And when it is in Taurus, in its detriment, it has the other effect. Okay, so the direct opposite effect. That is why nationalism and fascism rose the last time that Uranus went into Taurus in the late 1930s. We saw Hitler and Mussolini rise to power. Now, I'm going to say this is a good time to mention that on my page, we have the Astrology for Ascension page. We have the Astrology for Ascension group where you're welcome to post. And in these comments as well, nobody's name or a party name is going to be posted because it just causes too much right now. People are too tied to it as if they have a dog in this fight, and none of us do. Not for any government or any political party. That's the truth. And so just for the sake of peace, my own, but also really it's just not a forum for that. So I just want to, I made it so that the posts have to be approved because people judge people, and you know, there's a lot of stuff going back and forth that I can see and I can feel. And so I was advised just to take precaution against that kind of thing happening. So I'm just going to say that it's the truth that fascism and white nationalism became very like the populist movements of those times, the last time that Uranus was in Taurus. And it doesn't mean that, you know, another war is in the making, but I'm just saying that the Saturn and South Node configuration and Pluto retrograde and Saturn also retrograde and all of those being in the same place at the same time in the constellation that rules over human affairs, major changes regarding climate and politics, that this isn't when you're going to see a shining, like the governments aren't going to be like, hey, we've decided that we're going to change and we're not going to, in the case of the United States, accept money anymore in politics. That's the opposite of what the astrology says, okay? It speaks more to dirty secrets and the government hiding things and covering things up and stealing wealth. So that's the astrology that we're coping with. And in the United States, for our solar return, it shows that there's a lot of bickering and volatile energy, okay? Volatility is what he's saying. And we're the peacemakers. And so we just watch these things play out and wonder how much longer it's going to go on. And I know I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying I'm happy about it, but that's what's happening. And all of us wanted to be here at this time. And so better to just, let the comments on Facebook, don't even read them. Don't go on it. Don't, get mixed up with stuff on social media. I'm going to have to take a couple of days off. I've been trying to as much as possible, just because I can't, the posts are too, it's a challenge to be able to read everything that's happening and see how it's playing out and not feel something. But for all of us now, this is about rising above it and taking the long view is what Metatron is saying. That's why the Phoenix and Sirius energy keeps coming to our attention, because that's about the Phoenix and the change, the blooming and the blossoming that comes after the darkness. And that's what Saddle Sood is about as well. The energy that Now, when the full moon takes place, you know, right next to these fixed stars, their energy plays into the story of the full moon. Okay, so it's a promise of hope because of that star being in the constellation of the water bearer, and the healing that will take place on the planet after who knows what will go down that will finally cause that to come to fruition. But we're just going to focus there and on sending compassion and love to everyone who's being affected by, and you could name so many places in the world right now where the governments are acting out of order, okay, or where there's places of unrest. So now we're going to focus on ourselves and how this is going to affect us. So Uranus, at the time of this full moon, which he's in charge of, is in an aspect that's called a square. Okay, so it's a square is the most challenging and also the most powerful. So for you, when you have squares in your own chart, you have to work through them, but then it's a lot of power packed in that 90-degree angle. And so Uranus is well, I'm sorry, no, I don't know why this program shows that he's retrograde. Uranus at the time of the full moon will just have moved direct. Didn't actually move. He's still sitting at the same degree. He's been sitting there for weeks and weeks, and he won't even tick forward a little bit at that point, but we still look at that and say, okay, this is the time that the retrograde ends, and he begins to move forward. And this is taking place in the 6th house of health and habits. And Mercury, who he is in a square with, also rules health, habits. It rules the mind and what we are telling ourselves that makes us fall into those habits. And habits that we go to for comfort will probably come up with this moon as well. And Uranus he's been moving forward since the first week of January. He started moving forward on January 6th, and now he'll begin this retrograde, retrograde now, and he will move forward again on January 11th of 2020. So that gives us quite a bit of time to take a look at how we are treating ourselves. If you see, well, I can't really show you because Ceres is not recognized as being so important. So you won't be able to appreciate the trine. But there's a trine from Mercury to Ceres. Ceres is in the 1st house, and Ceres is the goddess who was like the badass mother. She went down to hell, or she tried to go to get Persephone out of hell. So she relates to the divine mother and the harvest and nurturing and nourishment. And that is in a trine with Mercury, who rules health and the mind. And then they together make that same aspect to Chiron, okay, who is retrograde still in Aries, okay? That is the wound of self. Chiron in his higher form is I am. So what this is talking about is we're going to focus on taking better care of ourselves and putting ourselves first, not in a way that's selfish, but in a way where we give ourselves time. Metatron is saying in a way that shows that we're devoted to ourselves, giving ourselves time, giving ourselves attention, okay? And then also any wounds that came from the mother, it could be the father as well, anyone who made you feel like you were less important will come up now. Anyone that you feel like robbed you of your power in any way. It's important always to find out why we agreed for things to shake out the way that they did, and to forgive ourselves, as well as letting go of any blame. Blame only steals your power, because it's like saying that they did it, instead of recognizing that we chose to have that story play out. So, and really, we're going to be really mindful of the conversations that we're having with ourselves. Remember, Jupiter, who goes direct just before the full moon happens, is still sitting at the degree or at the place in the sky that is the great attractor. So that's about instantly manifesting. He's at the degree that talks about speaking sweetly, and that's in how you're talking to yourself, the tape that you're playing in your mind. And Metatron always says it's not enough to just say, I'm not going to speak negatively anymore, because nature abhors a vacuum. It's resetting the mind, okay? It's really telling yourself a new story. Writing down 10 things that you did throughout the day. You keep the on your phone. And write down, like, oh, I appreciate that I did that. I appreciate that I did that. It's not easy for us to praise ourselves and to acknowledge ourselves, and because it feels vain, and it's not. You know, you're a spark of God. You're an angel here on earth. Metatron always says, speak to yourself with the same reverence and the same respect as if you were addressing an angel, because you are. Okay? And so we're going to look at reprogramming the mind and reprogramming our habits, like our health habits, because we're getting ready to move into Virgo. And then that's what all it's going to be about. Also interesting to note that at the time of the full moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, and the nodes of fate are all at the same degree of declination. Okay, so I know that people get confused when I talk about the degrees of declination. This is the degrees that the planets, as they're traveling around, as we travel around the sun, they're aspecting the earth at the same degree, okay? So it's basically a conjunction. It's a blending of the energies. But on the chart, you're not going to, like, they're not in the same, Saturn and Pluto are, but they're not at the same degree. It's a different way of looking at a measurement of degrees, okay? That's the best way to say it. So when you're talking about Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter all being there together, and Saturn and Pluto both being retrograde, Jupiter still basically in the same spot he was a few hours before that when he was retrograde, so he's pretty much still in that stationary mode. And when planets are stationary, their influence is felt greatly. So that's why a lot of people have been wigging out this last week, because Uranus and Jupiter both were stationing through that whole Lionsgate portal. Again, I'm going to just remind you what they look like, the gateways. Not quite as ovular, more of a circle, but that, and then the arms, or however you want to say that, they extend further out. It sort of like sits on the earth. It's etheric, so you can't see it. I've just been shown this. It sits there, and there's fire, okay, going all along. The fire goes through, and the fire comes back over, and it sits there for a long time, these gateways, okay? I can remember years ago having the dream and being like, I gotta hurry up, I gotta get through that gateway. Nobody can miss, you can't miss it. I have a lot of people say, I'm afraid I'm gonna miss this or miss that. That's, if you hear that, that's a story, and it's not judging anyone. It's just a fact that a lot of people have not yet gotten out the story that you have to earn forgiveness, earn your way. We come through these passages, these rites of passage, these gateways, these portals, however you want to say that. All of humanity does, okay? Even people who aren't awakened. And you don't have to do anything special. Metatron said you've arrived. Like, you're fine. So, yeah, and that's what it looks like. And so when all of those are together, again, that's going to be something involving dirty money and politics, even could be covering up a murder. And with Jupiter in that position, just because of the aspect, it's called a semi-sextile with the South Node, and Saturn and Pluto, they're all retrograde. Pluto. That doesn't show like a lot of truth coming to light. When Mercury is in a square with Uranus, that again does not speak to truth coming out. And the vertex, which is a karmic point in the sky, is in the 8th house in Gemini. Again, another heads up to there being something of deception going on. This could also have to do with money when Mercury is involved, currency and trade. And in the solar return chart of the United States, as I said, it shows that we take a huge loss in trade, and mostly with the markets with farming. And then we also have Pallas Athena and Gabriel in the 12th house, where things get a little foggy. And there's deceit happening. And that Jupiter is in the square still with Neptune, who's retrograde. So a lot of stuff about cover-ups and things being in hiding. But what's awesome is that the Sun, Mars, Venus, and Juno, who represents partnership, they're all clustered together. In fact, Venus is exactly with the Sun at the time of the full moon. And so that in Leo can speak to things coming into alignment in order for us to move into union. And the 3rd house I want to mention too, because that's the Gemini house, is Saint Michael. Archangel Michael's asteroid is retrograde there, pretty close to the moon at the time. So if something big does come out, let's all take a deep breath and wait and see how it all plays out. Neptune is retrograde with Nessus retrograde and Black Moon Lilith in the 4th house in Pisces. So that could speak to water events. And the fixed star also has to do with climate change. And Archangel Metatron's asteroid is lined up with Vesta, the energy of the High Priestess. And the 14th is when in Sirius, I'm not going to get into the details because it kind of gets a little caught up in, astrological terms, things like that. But there's something else going on with Sirius on the 14th of August. And so just expect those energies to keep playing out now, I would say through August. But remember, this is going to be something illuminating, most likely related to matters of balance and the self, and where we may be out of balance. If you're waiting for a partner to come on board, we need to be completely the masculine and the feminine, Mars and Venus, who are with the Sun, the divine lovers. Those are in harmonious balance within us, and then the partner comes. Okay, otherwise the partnership is not sustainable. And so if you're in a marriage and you're waiting for someone to show up and take you away from it all, that's not, or planning to just move right in with someone, we're at a time now when everyone is learning to build their lives, their homes, and be happy with doing it on their own, okay, before we move into a phase of partnership. This still does not look very much like it's a time that we would be coming into union, just because of the aspects that Uranus is making over there as well. And Uranus, so this would more relate to maybe partnerships that are no longer sustainable, going by the wayside. I've had a couple of people who, once they made a decision to move on from their current relationship, started having dreams about their twin flame. It isn't that everyone isn't a twin flame. Everyone is. You don't create the yin and the yang and then you smash them together. Everyone is a twin flame. Not everyone is on the twin flame journey, or not everyone has been notified that they are yet. So that's something like that. It's very possible with the astrology here that would come up. And the North Node in Cancer in the 8th house relates to feeling a sense of satisfaction and self-worth within yourself, and allowing yourself to be so secure within yourself that you're happy to allow someone to come in to know you intimately. Okay, so but it's really with Chiron involved. It's more speaking to now we're in the phase of healing ourselves and gaining security within ourselves and healing the wounds of insecurity, especially with Ceres involved in the astrology. So we're going to all focus on health habits and self-care and putting ourselves in a place of importance within our own life, showing yourself how important you are to yourself so that someone will come in and reflect that back to you. Otherwise, someone will come in and reflect that you're the last priority. Like, if we do that with ourselves, then that's what we're calling in, because that's the energy we're sending out. And then, and he wanted me to talk about resetting habits, because now on the 18th, then 3 days later, Mars will move into Virgo. The 21st, Venus will move into Virgo. On the 23rd, the Sun moves into Virgo. And on the 29th, Mercury moves into Virgo. So once these energies are played out by the 18th, because the moon's it's like 2.5 days roughly with the moon energies. Then we're going to look to our habits and self-care, diet. Doesn't mean go on a diet, just like what are you ingesting? What are you ingesting here? What are you ingesting in the belly? So it takes 4.5 months to 4 to 5 months to reset. No, wait, we have 4.5 months to reset our habits. To set a new habit, it takes 66 days. Okay? 66. How interesting is that? Because Virgo is the 6th house. And 6 relates to Venus and how you show love to yourself and caring for yourself. That's the way that you demonstrate to yourself that you love yourself. Just saying like, oh, I love myself. I love myself. I thought I was crazy about myself. Because I would smack down anybody that said anything negative about me. But this is back in the day. But the truth is that the way that we treat our physical bodies and the way that we speak to ourselves is how we show love for ourselves. So it takes 66 days to reset that habit. And so you have plenty of time. You have 4.5 months until Uranus moves again. And then we take another look at it. And Jupiter, I wanted to remind everyone, went into retrograde on April 11th. On the 3rd of December, now he's going to just speed along ahead through Sagittarius, his home sign. And on the 3rd of December is when he enters Capricorn. It's interesting to note that if you're looking at, what's happening with the constellations, like from the side view, not from the Earth looking straight up at the 30 degrees of this sign, but if you're looking at the constellation, that Jupiter is still in Scorpio, and he will move from Scorpio into Sagittarius on November 7th. That's when I believe that a lot of truth is going to come to light. And Mercury is out of shadow on the 15th of August. I don't make a big deal about Mercury retrogrades, but the last couple have really kicked my ass. I'm sorry if there's children watching, because I just realized I've said that twice now. On October 9th, Mercury is going to enter Scorpio. He goes retrograde on my birthday on the 1st of November. And he's in Scorpio until December 9th, 10th. He's in Scorpio for 2 months. So that's why I'd like to get the class done before that happens. Even though my own Mercury is in Scorpio, it is actually the occult, the esoteric that Scorpio rules, and the deep subconscious programming and things that go on that we don't want to look at. And the reason that Scorpio and Pluto and this is important for everybody, because Pluto being retrograde, everybody is having this in some way. Pluto is the phoenix that rises from the ashes. A lot of people don't like to look at the shadow, and all the healing is about like when they were victimized here, they were victimized there, and it's very important to do that. I say as much as possible, work that through before you take a look at the other stuff, because it's not so easy if you're not in a place of unconditional love for yourself to look at the shadow. Most of the time, though, if we're still in that place where we're hurt, we're wounded, and we're defensive, we can't even see the shadow. But that's where the power comes from. Pluto is the power. And when you take a look at the darker side or the shadow side and transmute that energy to light, that we're the phoenix rising from the ashes. And then on August 30th, once Mercury has moved into Virgo, he's exalted there. So Virgo is the hermit card. So this is a time of reflection and really not so much keeping to ourselves, but with Venus there, with so many planets there, not so much like party, party, party in Virgo. And happy birthday to all of my Virgos. My very close friend is Virgo. I have a lot of Virgo in my chart. When Mercury is where he's exalted and Mars is there as well, and Venus, this is a really good time to set a new course, is what Metatron is saying. Implementing all of the plans that you've been making up to this point. Like, I want to do that. I want to see this happen. I want to do this. That's where we're going to start. We're doing our mind work now with manifesting. We're going to see ourselves engaging in implementing these things. You know, we're leaving procrastination behind. When Mars is in Virgo or in your 6th house, he gets things done. On the 30th, then, for all of us outside of the United States, you'll have a black moon. The second new moon in a month is called a black moon. And so that's happening for everyone outside of the United States. In the United States, we had that in July. Excuse me. I didn't want to take a drink at that moment. But listen, everybody, I am grateful for all of you tuning in. And so, yeah, we're looking at breaking free. Breaking free, Uranus, is letting go. The way to have freedom is to allow yourself to let go of the ties to the illusion, is what Metatron is saying. And he's reminding everyone that for the sake of your emotional health right now, be very choosy, or choose your battles wisely, is what he's saying. And that in letting go, that's when we have true freedom. When we're holding on to, it could be, you know, what's happening politically or any issue, anything with a loved one. When we just allow ourselves to let go and let the Creator to take it, that's when we come to a place of freedom and surrender, is what he's saying. So a lot of energy of surrender and letting go, allowing the Creator or the universe to take over. That's the lesson of Uranus, because he will anyway. So, and it's a lot easier if we're in the surrender position than if we're holding on tight when that tornado comes through. So anyway, everybody, happy freedom, happy releasing. And I hope that all of you have a wonderful full moon. And I will be talking to you coming up shortly about, I appreciate all the comments about Metatron too, and questions. And all of you raised questions that, and he wants me to assure everyone that none of the questions are ever seen as silly, because some people had voiced that, and they will all be answered. Okay, so that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks, hopefully this week, but we'll see how it goes with the classes being uploaded and edited. So, all right, everybody, take care. Sending love to everyone. Bye-bye.